Hi, everyone. My name is Xin Chen Tong. I am from the Department of Child and Family Development. I'm a full-time lecturer there. In this video, I would like to talk with you about how to talk to children about bullying. So in this video, I will first talk about what bullying is about, how often it occurs, the characteristics of bullies and victims before I provide ways of how parents can support children so that their children can learn how to protect themselves from victimization, or how to prevent their children becoming bullies. So I am also a mother of a child. So my daughter just started as a freshman at SDSU this year. She wants to become a high school teacher. So she's majoring in English. So later she can become an English teacher. Later you might see me having lunch with her at a restaurant on campus. So please come say hi if you happen to see it at one of the dining areas. So first of all, what is bullying? This means negative interactions when there are physical attacks. They could be verbal attacks or any other forms of abuse between children. And how often does bullying occur? So 20% of children are bullies, according to research, and 25% of children are repeatedly victimized. Most bullies are boys, even though girls can be bullies as well. But when girls are bullies, they tend to show more verbal and relational hostility, but boys tend to show both verbal as well as physical hostility. So what could be some examples of relational hostility? Children can be calling others names. They can be isolating others, things like that. Or they could be spreading rumors about a certain child. So relational hostility tend to be quiet. And then we may not see it. Other times they can be upfront. So for example, telling a child, you are different from us, you dress different from us, you can be part of us. Then you might have heard of cyberbullying. So when bullies move into the adolescent periods, many of them attack through electronic means, such as text messages, email, social media, and so on. And you need to know that about 20 to 24% of youths have experienced cyberbullying. Then about also some children get to observe how others are bullying others. So about 20 to 30 onlookers, these are the children that are watching bullying occur, and they even encourage behavior of bullies. So later we'll talk about how maybe your children could be one of the onlookers, how you can change their behavior so they can help with preventing bullying from occurring. So what are some characteristics, behaviors, and traits of bullies and victims? So let's start with seeing the traits of bullies. Bullies tend to have high self-esteem. It means that they tend to think highly of themselves. They think they're great. They tend to show pride in their acts. They think that what they're doing are okay. They're fine. And they tend to feel indifferent to harm done to other victims. In other words, they are not showing sympathy. They are also not showing empathy. When others are hurting, they don't feel anything. Then bullies, they could be physically, verbally, and relationally aggressive. They could be showing just one of these, or they could be showing all of these. They're just showing a lot of aggressive behaviors in harming others. So, and when they are harming others, these oftentimes are intentionally harming others, even though sometimes they could be verbally harming others, and they are not aware that they are causing psychological harms to others. Bullies tend to be socially powerful, so the other children admire their power, the other children want to be friends with them, and the other children can be even onlookers, encouraging the bullying behaviors. Then what about victims? Victims tend to be passive. When they need to be active, when they need to defend themselves, they're scared, they're quiet, they're afraid. So they don't know how to actively defend themselves. Victims also lack defenders. They tend not to have friends who would stand up for them. And victims tend to have inhibited temperaments. It means that they tend to be quiet. That tends to be their personality. They tend to be scared. They are showing fearful behaviors, facial expressions, and they tend to avoid new people and situation. They're just withdrawn. They don't want to face new people, new situation. They don't know how to interact with new people and situations. So these are examples of inhibited temperaments. Physically, they tend to look weak or frail, like smaller, skinny, pale, without much physical power and strength, things like that. A lot of victims, they usually are already rejected by their peers. They don't know how to build friendships. They don't know how to be friendly toward others. Or even they could be showing some negative behaviors. For example, their hygiene may not be good. They may dress in not so good outfits, things like that. They may not be doing so well in their schoolwork. So the other children, they just don't see any point to be friends with these victims. So I want to let you know first the behaviors and characteristics of bullies and victims, because later on, when you start wanting to help your children, you will be able to kind of know what could be the characteristics and behaviors in your children. That way you have a better ways, you can come up with better strategies of helping your children. So becoming victims of bullying, it could be related to the child's personality or behaviors. But then before you help your child, first of all, you need to think about your parenting styles. Because oftentimes, in addition to the child's appearance or the child's behavior, parenting styles could further make it worse. So a child can become a victim, or even a child can become a bully. So if we first talk about victimization, when a parent is overly controlling, they are not granting their child much autonomy or say independence. They are not supporting their child to feel competent about themselves. Then these children, they tend to be withdrawn. They don't have self-confidence. They tend to be scared. So are you that type of parent? When parents are overly controlling, parents always have a strong say in what children need to be doing, and they don't allow their children to negotiate with the parents. Then these children, they tend to experience anxiety. When there are new people, new situation, they are scared. They don't know how to negotiate, not even to mention how they can stand up for themselves, because at home, that's how they should be, just listening. They cannot stand up to face their parents. So at home, are you allowing your children to stand up for themselves? Are you allowing them to practice how to have their own ideas so they negotiate with you? And when you allow them to negotiate with you in a reasonable way, they tend to have better self-esteem. They know that they have the ability. But then if you're always saying, you just do what I'm saying, then children tend to have low self-esteem. They feel like I can't do anything. My parents do everything for me. So how do you expect them to have some say when their peers are bullying them? Then research also shows how maternal overprotection contributes to their child experiencing bullying. Their child tend to become a victim of bullying. So maternal overprotection can happen in physical ways. So your child fell, and then you get worried, and then you keep comforting them. Maybe they could be okay. Maternal overprotection can happen in a way that when the child is experiencing some challenges, and then you are just too supportive. You don't tell them to reason about the situation and then come up to their own ways of solving the problem. So you can be there for them. There's no problem. But then how do we give them ideas? But then encourage them to come up with their own ideas of solving problems. It could be falling. It could be some psychological problem of, for example, completing their homework or solving problems with their friends. So when parents, particularly moms, so this shows in research, particularly moms, when they are overly protective, then their children tend to be overly dependent on their parents. They're not confident that they have the ability to solve the problems. They tend to use a fearful demeanor because they always have someone to protect them. So how do we expect them to come up with ideas of protecting themselves? So why is it important to help our children, particularly if they fall victim of bullying? These are the consequences of victimization, according to research. When they experience bullying at school, they're scared, they're frustrated, they're upset, they don't want to go to school, they don't want to try at school because they don't feel good. Research shows that when children enjoy friendships at school, they want to try, particularly if they are friends with those children who are high achievers, if they're friends with children who are friendly to them. So when they become victims of bullying, they are not trying in school. In the end, they are not doing well in school. They tend to show anxiety, depression, and worst cases, if they don't have anybody to talk about that, if the bullies tell them that if you dare telling anybody, I'm gonna do something even worse to you, then these victims may just want to kill themselves. So these suicides happened because some children fell victims of bullying. So how can parents help their victimized children? First of all, you want to start building the healthy self-concepts and appropriate self-esteem in your child. So you start with them. But then how do you build self-concept? So what is self-concept? Self-concept is someone's thoughts about their abilities, their traits, their behaviors, all things like that. So everything that you have, all the thoughts that you have about who you are as a person. What is self-esteem? Your judgments of yourself. So when we have higher self-esteem, we feel great about ourselves. We have high judgments of our abilities, of who we are. When we have low self-esteem, we think poorly of ourselves. We don't have self-confidence. We feel sad. So how do we help children to have healthy self-concept? You want to build their confidence. And what are some daily things you can do to help building their self-confidence? Some easy things as encouraging their pursuits of interests, hobbies. So it could be any everyday interests and hobbies. For example, they could be good in sports. They could be good in some kind of hobbies like drawing, painting, writing, things like that. So when you allow them opportunities to continue develop their abilities in their interests, in their hobbies, then they feel good about themselves. They have the self-confidence. Oh, I'm great. So starting from there, you want to support their autonomy. Autonomy means independence. When can you start supporting children's independence? When they're really young, when they're just toddlers at age 1 or 2, they're moving around, they want to do things on their own. So allow them opportunities to do things on their own. You could still be providing supervision, and then just teach them appropriate ways to do things like cleaning up for themselves, or even helping others in the household, help with folding laundry and things like that. When they can do things for themselves or for people around them, they feel great about themselves, and that's where their self-esteem start to rise. So that's such a basic thing before they know they can be a capable person. Then let's go into the parent-child relationship, how you can support them with the enjoyable parent-child relationship. Please know how a lot of times we use the relationship with our parents to understand, or say with our parents and primary caregivers. So your primary caregiver when you were young could be your grandparents, could be your aunts and uncle, it doesn't matter. So the relationship we built with our primary caregivers, we use the same idea to interpret our relationships with others. So if the relationship is enjoyable, children enjoy relationships and they want to be an active member in the relationship. If the parent-child relationship is warm, children want to take active roles to be an active member in the relationship. They want to talk about their ideas, they want to ask questions, they want to hear others out and things like that. So this is how they become active in their social role with others. And later on, they can use the same idea of interacting with their primary caregivers, to their friends, to their peers, and so on. Then the next thing parents can do in terms of building healthy self-concept, you need to change children's negative opinions of themselves so they can look small. They may not be great in everything, but then you want to let them know that they can be great in other things, even though they are not great with everything. So what are some daily things you can do? Praise their efforts. So I particularly emphasize, you're praising their efforts. You are not praising their work. So when they're young, their products like writing, drawing, it may not be great, but then you say, wow, look at you. You are drawing with so many colors. You're writing so much, or look how you got better this time compared to last time. That's praising their efforts, and that way they see how they can improve, they can get better. So getting better is the idea of how you feel good about yourself, developing the higher self-esteem. And then when they're showing positive behaviors, like helping others, asking questions, caring for others, things like that, praise the positive behavior. So they would want to show more positive behavior. Wow, I see how you had some problem with your brother, but then you are able to use your words to talk it out loud, to talk about that. And then in the end, you come to a good solution. So that way they're practicing showing active and positive behaviors, but then they start to have positive opinions of how themselves can be active. They can be powerful in some ways. Even though I've been talking about how you need to support their self-esteem, but it's also important that you remember you still need to guide their behaviors. You need to have firm control if they did something wrong, like they grabbed their younger sibling's toy. You still need to be firm that that's not allowed. And you tell them why it's not good. You tell them, look at how you grabbed your younger sibling's toy. And now look at them, they're sad. Do you remember how you were sad? Did you feel great when you were sad? Do you think that's a good behavior? What do you do next time? So reasonable control, let them know why you have that control, and you need to be firm. Bad behaviors are not allowed. So this is where not only you let them know you support them, but then there's the limits. There are some guidelines for positive behaviors. And this works for supporting children who could fall victims of bullying, but this also is related to how you would not allow your child to become a bully. How else? So there are several ways parents can help their victimized children. So you want to teach children to respond in a non-reinforcing ways to attackers. So in this video, you can click into the video, but then I'm gonna show you a brief part of the video of how children can be confident and children will not feel into the attackers. So look at how the child is very confident and how the parent is really warm.
Deal with a bully. Advice from my son. Your favorite son. Right? Number 1. The first step in dealing with a bully is being confident. Confidence doesn't mean you're trying to be better than everyone else. It means you're being the best you can be. Once you're proud of who you are, it doesn't matter what other people think of you. Think of it this way. I love barbecue sauce. I love it so much. If I'm eating barbecue sauce and someone says, ew, barbecue sauce is stupid, that doesn't affect how I feel about it. I still love it. So if someone says to my face, ew, you're stupid, just like barbecue sauce, that doesn't affect the way I feel about myself. I know I'm not stupid. You're like barbecue sauce. Not everybody's gonna like you. Doesn't mean you're not awesome. Number 2.
So you could see in the video how the boy is so confident and he is willing to tell others, you think barbecue sauce is disgusting, but I like it. But then the other way is if someone's attacking you verbally, you're stupid, what you're eating is disgusting. Then if you just get scared and if you become quiet, it feeds to the bully and they want to do more because they feel great that they are getting the fearful response from you. So you can teach your child when they are attacking you, just speak in a calm way. I just like it. And then just stop right there. Then that way they are not feeding to their bully. Then parents can help children form and maintain gratifying friendship. Because when they have friends, they get support from their friends and they learn to support their friends. What do we mean by gratifying? It feels good to both ways, both parties. When your child learns to support others, then their friend will feel good. And then when your child needs it, their friend will support them. So that's the mutual way of supporting each other. And that makes the friendship positive and gratifying. So when they have friends, children can turn for help when needed. So power, we may not see the power, but having people by you, it's the social power. And the other children, they are less likely to bully someone who has friends standing by them. So you can see how when children are standing together, it shows that power there. Then this next one, I want to stress that this is the best way to help children. You want to promote prosocial behaviors. What are prosocial behaviors? Positive behaviors that intend to help others without wanting to get anything back. So prosocial behaviors help children so that they will not fall victim, and prosocial behaviors also help children so that they would not become bullies. So how do you help children to show their prosocial behaviors? You need to be attentive and sensitive to your kids. When you're attentive, when you're sensitive, you are showing prosocial behaviors. You are a good role model. And remember, I mentioned how children learn from their interactions with their parents. So right there, you already are, even when you are not teaching your child much, your behavior is teaching your child. This is how you should be. You need to be a warm person. You need to be sensitive to people around you. Then next thing, you talk about how to be nice to others, how you could be a good friend. So you talk with them. How are you getting along with your friends? What did you do? So do your friends like what you're doing? And what do you like about what your friends did? Oh, they share with you. Next time, do you think you can share with them something? And parents can also share experience of getting along with others. So getting along with your spouse, getting along with your in-laws, getting along with your friends. So you need to be a good role model. And then that way you can share positive experiences. So your children will be able to show those positive behaviors. And then when they are prosocial, when they're helping others, they tend to have good friends. So they won't be rejected by their peers, and then they won't fall victims of bullying. You can also teach children, if their children talk about how they saw the other children being bullied, you can teach your children as bystanders to intervene. So bystander power could be really strong. So a bystander, if they saw something, if they knew anything, they can let their teacher know. They can let their parents know. So adults can deal with it if they are not sure how to deal with it. And then if they see someone being bullied, particularly if your child is an assertive child, if your child is a competent child, you want to encourage them just to tell the bully, that's not a nice thing to do. You should not be doing that. And then later on, they might be able to report to adults. This is screenshots I've taken from a website. So I will share with you the websites later in this recording. So you can teach your children if they are bystanders. So when you see someone being bullied, speak up. And then some children may say, but tattletelling is not good. And you want to tell them the purpose, the intention is totally different. When you're doing tattletelling, your purpose is to get someone in trouble, and that's not good. But then if your purpose is to help someone who got hurt physically and psychologically, that's a great intention, and you should do that. Because when you speak up to tell the bully that you should not be doing it, or you tell an adult, you are making such a difference. And tell them how, if you experience something the same, someone bullied you, and then you felt bad, but then you have someone stand up for you, how would you feel? You will be so thankful, right? So this is how parents can teach children to stand up. Then what about cyberbullying? How can parents help their victimized children when they experience cyberbullying? First of all, parents need to use appropriate parental oversight of children's use of cell phones, computers, the internet, and so on. So you don't need to know every detail, but every now and then you talk to your child. So, oh, what are you talking with your friends about on the cell phone? What are you doing on your computers? What are you posting? What feedback do you get? And then make sure that you also listen to them. Don't always preach them. Listen to them. That way your child feels like they will be heard, and it helps their self-esteem as well. And then you discuss with them. So your friend responded that. How do you feel like that? Do you think that's good? And if you don't feel like that comments, what can you do about it? Maybe you can let your friend know that that's not a nice thing to say. And then if someone is bullying using text message or things like that, maybe you can just unfriend them if they're really not nice. So here are two videos of how you can know what cyberbullying is about and ways of helping your children if they fall victims. So let me show you what they have. So this video, it's about knowing the major possible ways of cyberbullying.
Phone are prone to exclusion. 2, harassment. Harassment is sustained and intentional bullying, comprised of abusive or threatening messages sent to your child or to a group. This can severely affect a child's mental well-being. 3, outing. Outing is the act of publicly humiliating a child or group through the online posting of private or embarrassing information.
So that one was about knowing what possible ways of cyberbullying is about. Then I'm going to show you another video of how to help your child.
For your Facebook settings, don't give out your email address or phone number. Step 2, when bullied, don't respond and don't retaliate. This is a ridiculously hard rule to follow because, hey, you're getting sent awful things, and the first thing you want to do is fire back. But think of it like this, though. Engaging with a bully is like pouring water on a grease fire. It seems like the obvious thing to do at the time because, holy crap, my stovetop is in flames. But water just spreads the fire, and retaliating to a cyberbully just encourages the bully because you're giving him what he wants. Step 3, block the bully if possible.
So that was the same idea as not feeding into your bullies. If you do anything with particular, so this is different compared to in-person bullying. In person, you can tell them to stop. You can tell them that you don't like it and then stop right there. And then cyberbullying, you just don't need to respond at all. Just ignore them or even unfriend them. That way you don't feed into them. They don't get what they want. The cyberbullying, these people, what they want is to make you feel bad, and they want to know your response. And then when they know your response, they know you're agitated, they know that you're scared or whatever, they want to do more. But if there's no response, it's like kicking into a hard wall, and then or kicking into the air, and they don't get anything, and then they don't want to continue. Then what are other things? So what are other things parents can do? But here we are saying how we can prevent our children from becoming bullies. So first of all, you let them know what bullying is about. So bullying is about showing any hurtful behaviors by saying it, by physically attacking others, or any behaviors that make others feel bad. So even giving someone silent treatment all the time, isolating others, all those can hurt others to make them feel bad in their mind or in their body. And it's important that parents check in with kids often, so parents need to be involved. You don't need to be protective. You don't need to know every detail about your child, particularly when they get into elementary school age or even adolescent age. But then when they're younger, you check in with them more often, and gradually you don't need to check in as often, but you still need to know how they are doing. So how was your day? How are you getting along with your friends? And then from there, from their response, you would know whether they are having good friends and how they're treating their friends. So that way we know if they're a nice person, if they're being nice and fair. And when you talk with them, when you check in with them, make sure that you're asking open-ended questions. If you always ask close-ended questions, like, did you, was this and that? So those questions simply allow children to answer yes or no. But when you ask questions like, what did you do? Where did you do this? How did you get along with your friends? Then children can provide details. And that helps them to build their self-confidence, but then that also allows them to tell you more instead of them saying yes and no, and then it stops right there. Make sure that you listen to them. So you try to figure out what's going on. And then you also, when you're listening, you're showing you care about them and you want your children to learn about caring others. You also need to know who their friends are. So are their friends nice, cooperative, friendly, or are their friends bullies? If their friends are bullies, then you might be thinking, you might start thinking, what about my friend? What about my child? Is my child a bully as well? Is my child a bystander, encouraging bullying behaviors or things like that? And you need to make sure that you have your child has friends. So when they need, they have defenders. You want to talk about school, how school are doing. So these are different ways to know whether your child is doing well, is treating others with respect and kindness. Then you don't want your child to become a bully, right? But are you a bully? Sometimes parents don't want their children to be bullies, but the parents, him or herself, could be a big bully. They bully their child by overly controlling. They bully their child by always criticizing their children, saying mean things, harsh things. They're cold. So if you don't want your children to become bullies, you should not be a bully. You need to be a role model. So are you helping others? Are you showing kindness? So you must have heard of the saying, an ounce of practice is better than a ton of preaching. You could be preaching on your child. You need to do this and that, but you yourself are doing all the bad things. You're not practicing positive things. Then how do you expect your child to be a good person? So you need to be a role model. You're treating others with kindness and respect. And remember, kids are always watching how adults manage stress and conflict. So when you're stressed out, if you're showing negative behaviors, you're shouting, you're screaming, when you have conflicts, you're bullying others, you're over controlling, then that's what your child would learn. Then encourage children's helpful and kind behaviors. When they saw someone fail, and then they would just go give a helping hand. They're comforting others and things like that. Let them know you're so proud of them. You like how they are being nice to others. So they get your attention and they feel proud of what they are doing. Then they want to become a nice person. They want to continue to have your good attention. They want to continue to be nice. So that way, when they're showing more positive behaviors, their negative behaviors start to decrease without you knowing, without them knowing. So that's the idea of praise them with positive behaviors, and you don't even need to criticize their negative behaviors. Gradually, all the positive behaviors just get better and better, more and more, stronger and stronger, until the end. There's barely any negative behavior. So I hope you found this video helpful. And here are the 2 websites. So you can click in, and then you will get to see the information there. So here's one of the websites. This is the National Bullying Prevention Center. So you can see how there are videos to teach adults how to support children. There are videos for children. There are different information about how children or adults can take actions. There are resources for parents. And then there's another website that you may want to use. So this is another Stop Bullying website by the government. And you can see how there's even different languages that parents can use. And there are many, all different kinds of resources, including videos, including ways of preventing, what parents can do in terms of working with the community, schools, and things like that. So this is just a brief video to give you some ideas, and I hope the websites and the videos that I provided, you would click in and you can find more in-depth information for your needs. Thank you for watching.